Twitter has been used for a variety of purposes in many industries and scenarios, and by practically everybody, from world leaders, celebrities, to the ordinary people and teenagers. Meanwhile, with nearly 95 million elections-related tweets in 2014, Indonesia celebrated its first ever Twitter election. Indonesia's golden tweet is the second most globally shared tweet of the year, with over 1 million retweets after Ellen's Oscar tweet. This shows how influential Indonesians are on Twitter and how popular Twitter is in Indonesia. As a matter of fact, Indonesians are already one of the most advanced users of Twitter and among the most self-expressive in the Asia-Pacific region. Thus, opening an office in Indonesia is the next natural step that Twitter is taking.
Now, in our last presidential elections, basically it's like a Twitter election.
Yes. President Jokowi was, there was a lot of activity around the platform during the presidential election.
The role of the social media is very, very important. Now, does Twitter actually say, hey, there's this phenomenon, and there's something that we can learn from this? Do you look at what's happening and
Absolutely.
This is what we're learning and what exactly?
Absolutely. So we learn things from elections. In fact, now we have national elections this year in the UK, in Canada, and in Spain, and we take lots of lessons learned from what we saw happen on the platform in Indonesia, in the previous US election, in these other elections that have been in the election in India. And we work with our government teams around the world to make sure they're taking those best practices and helping the candidates and parties in these other countries take those lessons learned in their next set of elections.
Now, in the last 5 years with all these different events, how have you actually seen Twitter making an impact on the global conversations, on politics and the way how the media, we report? And
Sure.
Is this something that Twitter says, well, we didn't know that this is going to happen, but it happened, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it happens in continuous and profound ways. One, Twitter has completely eradicated these artificial barriers to communication. Barriers of status, you could never go have a conversation with a celebrity publicly in the past. That wasn't possible. You couldn't even see what they were talking to their friends about. Now those conversations happen on Twitter, and we're all there and privy to them. Yeah, I mean, one of our employees here was having a conversation with the president of Rwanda on the platform, a question and answer back and forth 2 years ago that would have otherwise been completely impossible. And for that to happen, not just eradicating barriers of geography, but barriers of status, barriers of socioeconomic status, et cetera, is extraordinary. And it gives everyone a voice and the ability to participate in these conversations that were never otherwise possible. As an add-on to that, the fact that it's real time and you see the information that's happening right now at the very top of your Twitter timeline enables news events to be completely global in the moment they happen. We have a beautiful visualization of the earthquake and ensuing tsunami in Fukushima, outside of Fukushima, Japan, and people around the world knew about it because of Twitter almost, within the first 45 seconds of the first tweet happening.
Yeah, especially when we can do it to help each other.
Of course.
For example, if there's national tragedies and natural disasters, everybody can immediately collaborate and help each other.
That's right.
And it's also very democratizing because, for example, we have in Indonesia a president who loved to tweet and updating the status, and then people can just say, well, shouldn't you be working?
Yeah, I mean, people are free to enter into that conversation and express their perspective on exactly what's being said. I think that's great.
Now, the headquarters is here in San Francisco, but I know that you also have people working
That's right.
in offices around the world, and you are planning to open an office in Indonesia.
We are, yes, we are.
I know we're one of the big users, but what's the dream behind it, and why now, and what are you planning to do?
So it'll be a media partnership office, marketing, sales. So, we work extensively with journalists and media organizations around the world. As you know, Twitter is extremely popular with media organizations and journalists for live reporting and getting getting your own messages out there. So that will be one of the important focuses of the office. There'll be a focus on user growth in Indonesia, and a real understanding of the user use cases in Indonesia and how they're different from everywhere else that we'll spend time on in that office, and then of course our business operations in that office. So that is all in the process of being set up right now. It's one of the reasons I'm excited to come over and visit later this year.
Okay, Michael, I know that Indonesia is one of the largest Twitter users in the world, and you do a lot of business with Indonesian companies. Tell me a little bit about the partnership, the kind of services and business that you offer with Indonesian companies.
Right. I think when we look at any country around the world, but in particular Indonesia, the first thing we really try and figure out with our partners is what are they trying to achieve, what are their objectives. Then we take a look at our objectives, right? And our objectives are the same objectives as a partnering team that they are for the whole company, which is how do we reach everybody on the planet? How do we bring people closer to the world in which they live? So we really try and figure out how those two things overlap, right? What is our partner looking for? What is Twitter's mission? And how do we make those things come together? And once we find that overlap, we really usually find that we can partner very, very deeply and for the long term with our partners.
In the future, what kind of partnerships and with who else would you like to expand, obviously, because if I understand, Twitter would like to establish an office in Indonesia.
Right.
How would you like to see sort of the partnership develop in the future?
I think it's a great question. We've kept our partnerships fairly simple in the past. We found that there's goodness to simplicity. But I think what we're looking to do now is double down with our partners around events in particular, and around making it easier for users to come on board to be a part of the mobile internet, right? So what we did with the World Cup, or what we did with the election with our partners in Indonesia, it's those types of things where we want to create an even richer experience for everybody, not just somebody who's super familiar with mobile data or has a high-end smartphone or is super familiar with Twitter. We want everybody in the country, in particular, subscribers of our partners, we want them to feel at home and to feel like it's easy to come and join the conversation on Twitter around the election, around the World Cup, around whatever is breaking. So we really want to sort of integrate more deeply with our partners and really work more closely with them to do those things than we have in the past.
How important is Indonesia compared to other countries when it comes to developing business partnerships?
Oh, it's super important. I mean, it's a great market for Twitter. Our partners are strong. From my perspective, these companies that we partner with, they're super strong and they're really leaning into the opportunity. The Indonesian community loves Twitter. It's a platform that really resonates in the market, given how it's sort of open and public and real time. Like, we find that it resonates well with the population. So I think we feel like when we roll up our sleeves and really tackle that market and work closely with our partners, we can kind of take it to a whole new level. And so I think it's a really important market for us.